I play in a lot of Dynasty leagues and I send a lot of trade offers. Some might say too many. But what I've learned is that the Dynasty market varies widely from league to league, from manager to manager. We have these sources like Fantasy Calc and Keep Trade Cut that can create kind of a consensus. But the truth is that an offer can get accepted instantly in one league and angrily rejected in another. But as Michael Scott once said, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So I'm persistent. I keep taking shots and I get a lot of deals done because of it. My name is Paul. This is Pure Potential. And in today's video, we're going to talk about the trade opportunities that I'm most interested in this week, trades that you should be making or trying to make in your leagues. If you enjoyed the video today, make sure to subscribe, like, leave a comment. Let's get into it. Now, you guys will have to let me know in the comments if you enjoy the format of today's video, but the plan for today is to go through some different categories of players. So we're going to hit on a sell high player, a sell low, a buy high, a buy low, and then I want to close out the video talking about Rashee Rice since he's such a unique case, and I've actually made a few trades this week involving him. All right, let's start with our sell high player, which is going to be Stefon Diggs. Now, this morning, Nico Collins was placed on IR. That was kind of a surprise. Pretty devastating news for me personally. I've got Nico on a lot of teams, but I have Stefon Diggs on a couple teams as well. And I'm going to be shopping him this week, not because he's been bad this year, but he's clearly not at the peak of his powers. This is not prime Stefon Diggs that we're dealing with anymore. And I think for the most part, people know that. But there's a lot of opportunity in front of him now to really take over this Texans offense. So he's not a must-sell player. He's not someone that I'm panicked about, but I do think that you're about to get your best chance to get out from a 30-year-old wide receiver, soon to be 31-year-old wide receiver, who isn't really a difference maker at this point. He's wide receiver 25 in expected points per game so far this season. That's according to the Fantasy Points data suite. He has a 21% target share, and he has a 1.8 yards per out run. So those are all fine numbers. Like, he's a guy that you've been able to start, and obviously he's had a couple of good games, and he might have some impressive production during this stretch while Nico is out. But just by way of comparison, Darnell Mooney this season has a 21.9% target share and 1.94 yards per out run. So on a per out basis, Darnell Mooney has actually been giving you more than you've been getting for Stefon Diggs. Now, you can definitely try to trade him now with this Nico news being fresh. People really excited about the opportunity that Diggs has in front of him. You might even have better luck if he comes out and has a big game this week, because people can look ahead and see, okay, at least 3 more games without Nico, maybe even longer. Who knows how long this hamstring injury is going to last? And they could talk themselves into trading you a first-round pick for Stefon Diggs. And that's really the prize that you should be targeting, is a future first. I think a 2026 first for Stefon Diggs is a trade that can get done. I think that that's a trade that is getting done in some spots now. And I think, again, after this week, let's say he scores a touchdown, has over 100 yards, something like that, that seems really attainable. So just looking at trades for Stefon Diggs that have been made today, I really like this one near the top, Stefon Diggs and Alvin Kamara for Jalen Waddle and Chase Brown. I think Waddle very undervalued right now. I think Chase Brown's going to be startable moving forward. And then you have Stefon Diggs and Nick Chubb for a first-round pick. And you have a couple of deals where you've got Stefon Diggs for 2 seconds. If you can't get a first, I am comfortable taking 2 seconds. Again, I just don't think, outside of maybe this stretch with Nico out, I don't think you're getting the type of production from Diggs where you really need to go down with this sinking ship. As a almost 31-year-old wide receiver, declining efficiency, eventually that value is just going to depreciate to a point where you're going to be wishing you could get a second-round pick, right? Look at where Keenan Allen is sitting right now. I put him on the block in all my leagues. Any second-round pick, no offers. Nobody wants him. That is where it's eventually going to go for Stefon Diggs as well. That's just how these things work. Now, for my sell low, I actually have 3 players. It's going to be a trio of uninspiring running backs in Rachaad White, Najee Harris, and Zach Moss. All 3 of these running backs are struggling right now, and they all share a backfield with a more impressive and more dynamic player. Now, in Najee Harris's case, he's been very fortunate that Jaylen Warren has been out basically the whole year so far, but even Cordarrelle Patterson has looked more explosive than Najee, and Najee's best game of the season is just 13.6 points, despite Warren mostly being out. He hasn't scored a touchdown. He hasn't given you any kind of a spike week. He hasn't been efficient. I think we're just starting to get to the end of the whole Najee Harris experience. He does not look good, and I do not foresee him maintaining a high backfield share when Warren is back, and I really do not foresee him as a true starting running back next year or moving forward. And then Rachaad White, he just continues to be like the least effective rusher in the NFL. And Bucky Irving is getting progressively more involved each and every week. I'm sure that White is going to remain part of the offense. I don't think they're going to phase him out entirely. He is a good pass catcher, but he's already a tough player to start. Like, you're really only starting him at this point if you have to, if you have players on bye. And I don't ever see him recapturing the type of role he had last year. He's somebody I'd be looking to get out on just based on where his fantasy calc value sits right now. I think he still has room to go down before Bucky Irving is truly considered the lead back on this team. And then Zach Moss. He's actually been the best of the three this year, but he is losing his grip on the 1A role for the Bengals. You know, in the offseason, we thought Chase Brown was the guy. We come out week 1, Zach Moss is the guy, and Chase Brown really marginalized in those first few weeks. But in the last 2 games, Chase Brown has actually out-carried Moss. He has gotten some work near the goal line. He is the more dynamic player. He has looked more impressive. Now Moss is dealing with a bit of an injury, hurt his ankle last game. I just think this trend is going to continue. And with Moss, like, how many more opportunities is this guy going to get? He's 26, almost 27. He's bounced around to different teams. Like, I think at this point, he's lost his job to Chase Brown. He's going to have some low-end RB3 flex appeal when he's out there. And then, you know, what is his next stop going to bring? So with all 3 of these backs, I would be looking for any second round pick any year. I don't care if it's really, really late. I don't care if it's in 2027. The ability to get out from these backs, these sinking ships, for a second round pick is a gift, because I don't think any of them are going to be worth more than, you know, maybe a third when the offseason hits, or even maybe later this year. But I'd also take a lot of the players that are ranked near or even after these guys on Fantasy Calc. Tyjae Spears, for example, is ranked after all 3 of these backs. Jalen Polk, Adonai Mitchell, Chuba Hubbard, Khalil Shakir, and of course, Jalen Warren, who, because he's been out, actually ranks below all these backs. I know Fantasy Calc value is not gospel, but their values are generated based on real trades that have been accepted. So there is some truth to the fact that Jalen Warren is being sold, bought and sold at lower prices than these running backs in a lot of leagues. And so he's the guy I would want, right? Along with these other players that I mentioned. Now for the buy low, I have to go with Ladd McConkey, because I was shocked to see where Fantasy Calc has Ladd McConkey right now. I just had to call him out as a clear trade target right now for really any roster construction. Like, I was scrolling down the list and I saw his name and I thought it was a typo or something. I did not understand how he could be sitting where he is sitting. He's like 93rd overall. That technically does include, they have rookie picks in with the rankings, so he's not the 93rd overall player, but he's like in the 80s or something. That is crazy to me. I understand the passing volume in Los Angeles has not been inspiring, but we should be prioritizing talent over situation in Dynasty. We have learned this lesson too many times, right? And especially with rookies, talent over situation, because there's so much time for that situation to sort itself out. And not only that, but he already has an elite quarterback. So you don't even have to worry about quarterback purgatory. It's literally just a pass rate problem, right? But McConkey ranks 11th among all wide receivers in target share and targets per out run. So he's already earning volume at an elite level. His yards per out run of 2.2 is 21st among all wide receivers. And that's also an elite number for a rookie wide receiver. Like, anything over 2 for a rookie is crazy good. Okay, so 2.2 yards per out run. And his ADOT of 8.8 is perfectly normal. So he's not some gadget player. He's not some scheme touch player, right? He's being used in a lot of different ways. But his ADOT is nearly identical to Jaden Reed, Jamar Chase, favorable usage across the board. He's been efficient when targeted, and he's currently tied with Malik Neighbors for the best PFF receiving grade in this class at 82, which, like everything else I just mentioned, is an elite number. Rookie wide receivers who finish above an 80 PFF receiving grade have an incredible track record. Like, say whatever you want about PFF, whether you think they're good at their job or not. If you look at the list of rookie wide receivers that have finished above an 80 PFF grade, all of them are good. Like, the bad wide receivers in that group are like Terry McLaurin. So the floor is incredibly high for a player doing what McConkey's doing right now. And because he's a rookie, we don't know how high the ceiling is. But I would suspect it's incredibly high, just given the amount of targets that he's already earning. And then you look at these trades on Fantasy Calc. I'm taking the Ladd side for almost all of these. Ladd McConkey for Wan'Dale Robinson, ridiculous. Ladd McConkey and a first for DJ Moore in a second, ridiculous. For Chris Godwin, I would take the Lad side. Lad McConkey for Chase Brown. Again, ridiculous. These prices are just outrageous. We're talking about a very, very early second round pick who has dominated from the jump and is already one of the most dominant target earners in the league. This is absurd to me. So absolute must buy, smash buy, mandatory that you send a trade offer for Lad McConkey in every one of your dynasty leagues. Okay, now let's do a buy high player, but first let's talk about what I actually mean when I say buy high. So for me, that just means you're overpaying on paper according to the calculator or whatever resource you're using, because it just can't factor in correctly either the advantage of that player or the upward trajectory of that player just isn't fully priced in. And so this is almost always going to be young players, breakout players, where the market is just a little bit too hesitant, not ready to buy all the way in, or just not buying in enough to reflect the advantage or the production that you're going to get from this player. So you don't always have to be looking around for these buy low options. You don't always have to be sending out trade offers after someone has a bad game. If you're buying a player that's been really good and really productive, yeah, it's going to be harder. You're going to get more doors slammed in your face. But again, it's about being persistent and sending out offers. And eventually, sometimes you're going to get these deals done. So the player that I would say is one of the better buy high options right now is Brock Bowers, who ranks first among all tight ends in receiving yards this season. He ranks second in yards per out run, second in targets per out run. He is first in first downs per out run, and he is third in points per game at the position. He's doing this as a 21-year-old rookie with Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell as his quarterback in his first 5 career games. And now Devontae Adams has a hamstring injury, and he is basically sitting out until he gets traded. So you're vacating the biggest target competition. You're leaving Brock Bowers in an offense with Jacoby Myers and Trey Tucker. And with so many other tight ends struggling to produce, Bowers looks like one of the true advantages at the position. I don't think it's hyperbole to say that buying Brock Bowers right now could be like buying Travis Kelce in his rookie season, right? That is possible based on Brock Bowers' college production, what he's done on the field so far, his athleticism, really all this guy needs. I mean, he doesn't even need it because he's already producing like one of the best tight ends in fantasy. But if we were to get this guy a real quarterback and get him in an actually productive offense, I mean, he could absolutely break fantasy. I have him as my 21st ranked player in tight end premium formats, and I think that might even be too low. I might have to move him up even further. But if you check out these trades, there are still people selling him for less than he's worth. Yes, there are going to be some deals where he goes for an absolute haul because that's the type of player he is. But you can see here, Brock Bowers for Troy Franklin, a first and a second. Like, to me, that's easy price to pay for what you could be getting from Bowers. Bowers for Tucker Kraft, a first and a third. Okay, you know, it's getting a little more expensive, but I'm still willing to pay that when you're talking about a top of the position player. Bowers for Cousins, Debo in a second. Like any deal like this where you're getting basically scraps, you know, you're getting non-difference makers, you're getting older players, and you're just sort of packaging them together. That's always a smash for the star player in the deal. TJ Hawkinson and Brian Robinson, another example. Just so easy to make that trade. Colby Parkinson and Jordan Mason. Now we're getting into the realm of the absurd. And at the very bottom, Ben Sinnott, a third, and Bo Melton. I'm just throwing that one out. Like, that's borderline collusion. I don't know what that is. But the point is that there are deals here that you can construct where even if you're not winning on paper, even if the calculator says that you're paying too much, Bowers is one of those assets where you almost can't pay too much just based on what he can provide for your team now and for years to come. I bought high on Bowers this week in one of my leagues because my only other tight end was Evan Ingram. I'm getting sick of waiting for him to come back. I'm not even convinced he's going to be all that productive when he comes back. I had some extra picks to play with. I thought I was going to make a big swing. So I traded away Rashee Rice with a late first, a very early second, and a third to get Bowers, Chase Brown, and Rico Dowdle. And I know that I overpaid. I went and checked. I went and looked on Keep Trade Cut. I went and looked on Fantasy Calc. I went and looked at my own rankings. Even by my own rankings, I gave up more for Bowers than he's reasonably worth. But with that particular team, with the amount of buying power that I had, it was worthwhile to go ahead and pay up for Brock Bowers and hopefully lock up a true positional advantage for many, many years. All right, finally, I'd like to talk about Rashee Rice, who I wouldn't categorize as a buy or a sell. I think he can be both, depending on your team situation. And based on the fantasy calc trades that I've seen, there's just no consensus right now. You've got some really gross deals like Rice being dealt for Keenan Allen, Raheem Mostert, and David Njoku. You have Rice and a second for Pickens and a third. You've got Rashee Rice for Devon Achane, Rashee Rice for T. Higgins, Rice and a third for A.J. Brown. So the prices are all over the map right now. Some people are like panic selling, selling him for peanuts. Some people are still paying for him like he's a premium asset. And so it's really, really hard to say he's a buy or he's a sell. I think he's a guy you have to do your due diligence on because we should be very high on him in the long term, right? He's 24 years old. He did not tear his ACL. There are no long-term concerns about his health. He should be able to participate in all offseason activities. He should be 100% for next season. Now, there is still a suspension looming. I suspect he'll miss games. I don't think it's going to be more than half a season at most. I expect him to play next year, and I expect him to play at 100% health. Now, what is the right price to pay for a likely wide receiver one producer who's probably not going to score any points until like next October? It's really hard to say, and it really depends on your team. On a rebuilding team, that should have a lot of appeal because he's going to be nearing a return the next time that you need points. So you're basically, whatever discount you're getting for him not scoring between now and the end of the year, that discount means nothing to you, right? That's just free. I would gladly trade a late first for him, but a team selling Rashee Rice is probably looking for production rather than picks. So I don't really think going into a trade negotiation and offering picks, that's not really going to help out the Rice manager. If they're looking to deal him, it's because he was putting 20 points per game in their lineup, and now they are scrambling to replace that. So what I'd be more inclined to do is try to package multiple veterans together to get him, kind of like this Keenan Allen, Raheem Mostert, David Njoku. I think that is unreasonably low, but that type of a trade where you take some veterans that are probably going to depreciate in value, but hopefully, you know, they're scoring points right now, and it can be a win-win deal for both sides where they do get some points, but it's pretty clear that by the time next season rolls around, you're going to be the one benefiting the most from the trade because you're going to have this high-end talent coming back. But so far, I've been much more of a seller with Rice. I had him on a lot of competitive teams, and I've been scrambling to try to replace that production, but I am adamant about not selling too low. So my rule is just that I'm not going to sell him unless I'm getting back a legit difference maker. Now, I already showed one trade where I did send him away and I was able to get Brock Bowers in return. So that's one example. In another league, a Dynasty Best Ball league, I traded him along with Mark Andrews and Ricky Pearsall for Amon-Ra St. Brown and Dallas Goedert. Now, I probably got a little bit lucky there in terms of the value, but that manager was rebuilding. He wanted to get the points off of his team. He doesn't care that Rice is out for the rest of the year. And he also, you know, he gets Pearsall, who should hopefully come back at some point. So it was a win-win for us, right? It was mutually beneficial. That's the type of trade that you should be looking for. And then in another league, I traded Rice, Spears, and a third for Saquon Barkley. And this is in a half PPR league where I have a lot of other good wide receivers, Jamar Chase, Garrett Wilson, Malik Neighbors. And so while on paper, I feel like the value is definitely in the other manager's favor, Saquon is the type of difference maker in a half PPR format that can genuinely push me over the top. And hopefully, you know, I get a couple of years of that. So just to sum up, I'm very interested in buying Rice at a discount anywhere that I can, especially on a rebuilding team. But in spots where I'm competing, I'm definitely not panicking. I'm not selling low, and I'm not selling him for scraps. Never am I sending him in an offer where I'm breaking him down into like 3 or 4 veteran players that are all worth like second round picks. Like, give me a legitimate star, or I will just hold on to him and I will find another way to get that production onto my team. Anyway, that's going to do it for today, guys. As always, thanks so much for watching the video. If you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing to the channel. That really, really goes a long way. I will be back later this week with a live stream to review some trades submitted on the Pure Potential Discord. So definitely subscribe if you want to catch that live stream later this week, and I will see you then.